From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. It is the latest in what could be the last poll done before next week's election. The Mountain States poll conducted by Montana State University Billings shows all three major Montana races extremely close, and also that Montanans seem to be leaning toward legalizing marijuana.
We get the expected splits for self-identified Republicans and Democrats. But
the results for the poll come from phone calls that MSUB political science students made between October 19th and the 24th with 546 likely Montana voters. Political science professor Jason Atkins directed the poll.
How accurate has it been traditionally?
Traditionally fairly accurate, within a few points and definitely within the margin of error.
In Montana's battle for Senate, one of the most watched and expensive races in the country, Democrat Steve Bullock is narrowly on top of Republican incumbent Steve Daines, 48 to 47%, with 5% still undecided. The race for governor, tied. Both Mike Cooney and Greg Gianforte at 45%, but 9% were undecided. Republican Matt Rosendale led the poll in the race for Montana's lone House seat by a percentage point over Kathleen Williams. But the main takeaway that all three races are too close to predict.
Everything's essentially a dead heat or 1 point advantage.
The poll did show strong support for the legalization of marijuana, with 54% saying they've already voted for or will vote for it. Meanwhile, 52% said they oppose LR 130, which removes the authority of cities and counties to regulate firearms. Atkins says many respondents seem confused about the measure. As for the race for president, the poll shows Republican Donald Trump on top of Joe Biden, 52 to 47% in Montana. Atkins believes the turnout of young voters between the age of 18 and 34 will have a lot to do with how many of the races actually turn out.
It can really swing some of these close races, not only in Montana, but nationwide.
Well, that poll has a margin of error of plus or minus 4.2%. President Trump is spending the night at his property in Florida after a busy day of campaigning in Arizona. Meanwhile, the Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden continues to take swipes at the president's handling of the COVID pandemic. Skylar Henry has more.
President Trump held two campaign stops in Arizona Wednesday to court Latino voters.
The American Dream Plan will bring more than 2 million new jobs to Hispanic communities, create over 500,000 new Hispanic-owned small businesses.
Democratic vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris also hit the Copper State.
In the spirit of John McCain, I am a proud, patriotic American.
Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden made a surprise appearance at a virtual town hall hosted by Oprah Winfrey.
I've said we're in a battle for the soul of America.
The former vice president spent the day in Wilmington, Delaware, where he voted early and publicly sparred with the president over the coronavirus pandemic.
We've lost more than 220,000 lives of this virus already, but this administration has just given up.
A safe vaccine is coming very quickly. You're going to have it momentarily. That eradicates the virus, and we're rounding the turn.
The two candidates also spoke out over the unrest in Philadelphia after an African-American man named Walter Wallace Jr. was shot and killed by police this past Monday.
You can't allow that to happen. We're watching it very closely, and we're waiting for a call. If they want help, we're there.
There is no excuse whatsoever for the looting and the violence.
Meanwhile, the White House says former DHS official Miles Taylor is a, quote, low-level, disgruntled former staffer after he revealed he is anonymous.
Turned out to be a low-level staffer, a sleazebag.
Taylor, seen here in a political ad endorsing Joe Biden, wrote op-eds for the New York Times and a book criticizing President Trump. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Well, stocks fell to their lowest levels in a month today amid concerns about recent spikes in COVID cases, not just here in the U.S., but also in Europe. France announced a full nationwide lockdown yesterday for the second time this year, and Germany is imposing a 4-week partial lockdown. Well, 10 more COVID-19 related deaths to report across Montana tonight. Those include a Bighorn County man in his 50s and 2 people in Yellowstone County, a man in his 50s, another man in his 80s. MTN now reports 352 deaths across Montana. Today, the state's total cases of coronavirus surpassed 30,000. Right now, there are just under 9,000 active cases. The Billings Police Department's now asking for the public's help in finding Amelia Brooks. This after her family and friends held a candlelight vigil last night at Two Moon Park. Brooks went missing in the evening hours of October 13th after last being seen at a residence in the 800 block of Caroline Street. The 22-year-old was last seen wearing a tan wool jacket and yoga pants. She's described as being 5 feet 1 inches tall, weighing around 200 pounds. Detectives are looking for any information regarding the case and ask residents near the 800 Caroline block there to check their properties and outbuildings for anything unusual, as well as any surveillance video they may have from the night of October 13th. And anyone with information is asked to contact dispatch. That number is 657-8200. Well, new numbers are out showing a major decline in arrests along the U.S.-Canadian border. MTN's Coulter Anstad went to the border today to find out what's behind that decrease.
Border Patrol officers in the Havre sector of the U.S.-Canada border have a lot of ground to cover.
We'll be in Zone 12.
456 miles to be exact.
We patrol the border in a variety of ways.
In fiscal year 2020, that patrol resulted in a 41% decrease in arrests compared to fiscal year 2019.
As you can see, we're within a couple yards of the United States-Canada border.
Havre Sector Deputy Chief Patrol Agent Anthony Good attributes the decrease in part to the agency's response to the pandemic.
We have an increased presence on the border. We've done some things as far as using different authorizations.
For Border Patrol as a whole, arrests dropped by more than 600,000 in fiscal year 2020. But that doesn't mean officers' jobs are getting any easier or less stressful.
At the ports of entry, it's essential travel only. So we have seen an increase of certain people that can't get through the ports of entry that normally could, that are coming through in between the ports of entry, and that's where we've been interdicting some folks.
A perhaps not often thought about job, but amid a pandemic, one that may be more important than ever.
All right, turning to Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire. Bob, we've been on kind of a roller coaster ride in October. Now we're going to start heading back up.
It's hard to believe. Let me show you. We kind of tracked it all out. And as you can see here, this is the October roller coaster. And I tell you what, it's one that you're not going to love too much because we warmed up pretty nice in the beginning part of the month. Not too bad. But as you can see, a lot of places were above normal. Some places even set records in the first week or so. And then we had about 1 day rest. Then after that, we started getting record low temperatures, as you can see there in the southern part of the graphic there. So all of a sudden, all this stuff started dropping down. And now, finally, as we start heading into November, we're going to start to see temperatures return back to what is around average for this time of year, which is into the low to mid 50s. And so things will be kind of changing up a little bit. But as you can see, it was really kind of a roller coaster of high and low temperatures up and down and all the way through the rest of this month. We'll have the rest of your forecast coming up in a few more minutes.
Thank you, Bob. In the wake of a deadly weekend crash that killed 2 local tow truck operators on I-90, first responders are renewing the call for safety on winter roads. Q2's Mitch Legge reached out to Montana Highway Patrol and employees who worked with the victims. Their message for everyone: slowing down and moving over can save lives.
When's the last time that you saw an orange traffic cone? They're a ubiquitous part of driving all across the United States. After 2 tow truck drivers were struck and killed in an accident over the weekend, the men's employer, Hansers Automotive, wants all drivers to be aware of signs, flashing lights, and traffic cones to protect all first responders on the road.
People forget that behind all these lights are people working on the road. There's people out there, and they've got families, and everyone wants to go home safe.
According to AAA, 1 tow truck driver is killed every 6 days on average across the country. To protect themselves while they work, drivers put up a combination of temporary signs and cones at least 1,000 feet behind the accident. If you see cones, signs, or lights, move the car over and slow down.
I would encourage motorists that as soon as they see that impending hazard, or construction maintenance vehicle or high patrol vehicle or fire truck, that they start preparing for that. Don't wait until the last minute to make your lane change or slow down, especially on the icy roads. That could be too late, and you could lose control right in the crash zone or where they're working, and then put everyone in a bad spot.
Hayter said all 50 states have some kind of move-over law, requiring motorists to give first responders extra space while they work. In Montana, on a road with a speed limit of 50 miles per hour or greater, the driver must move over if possible and reduce their speed by 20 miles per hour below the posted speed limit. The more people who are aware while driving, especially in treacherous winter conditions, the more people will arrive home safe.
We all want to go home at the end of our shifts. We all want to get back to our loving families, and that's, I think, again, when you see those lights on the side of the road, remember there's people behind them.
In Billings, Mitch Laggy, MTN News.
Thank you, Mitch. The investigation continues into Sunday's crash. So far, no charges have been filed. Tow truck drivers, along with law enforcement, firefighters, and paramedics, have been honored with National First Responder Day today. Q2's David J. talked with the Lockwood Fire Chief about what the tribute means to firefighters.
Having a day where somebody says thank you, it's nice. That warm feeling of being appreciated. And I think that more than anything tells us that you matter. Although we know it, once in a while it's nice to hear it. And having a day in your name and your honor says that to us.
Lockwood Fire Chief John Staley says COVID-19 has changed how firefighters and paramedics respond.
Now we're wearing masks on every call, putting masks on our patients. You don't think of it as environment, but that's what COVID has created for us now, is now an environment of an infectious environment, one we're always conscious of, but in this case, with far-reaching consequences both to the people who have to serve every day and the people we do serve.
The COVID protocols help everyone at an emergency scene.
We want to protect the citizen first. Anything we can find to protect our first responders, we want to keep them safe because, as I said before, without them, there's no front line of defense.
The chief says the citizens appreciate the skills of the emergency responders.
Well, the beauty of it is, you can hear it a million times. People say they call us on their worst day. What I've discovered about the citizens is when they dial 911, they really expect someone to come. The best part of the day for us is when somebody just says, thanks, or I appreciate what you do, or thanks for being there, or, you helped me. Not looking for the big paycheck. Our paycheck is when somebody says that, that they appreciate or acknowledge the fact that what you're doing is difficult and they're happy you came.
In Lockwood, David J., MTN News.
And definitely a big thanks to all our first responders. Well, still ahead on tonight's MTN 10 o'clock news here on Q2. We'll meet a young Montana woman who is breaking barriers in the Montana Ag Report. Plus the home stretch. We'll hear from Montana's candidates for governor as they look to make one final charge before Election Day.